Welcome to this episode of the Sports Detective Podcast Show. My name is James Williams, and today LeBron James's podcast partner is really good at coaching basketball. What are we talking about? Well, as you guys know, last summer when the Lakers hired JJ Redick to be their head coach, it was met with a lot of criticism from, I would say, basically most of NBA media, where it was like, hey, why are they hiring JJ? He's never coached in the NBA before, not even as an assistant. He's never coached in college before, even as an assistant. What are we doing hiring this media member, this podcaster? You guys are listening to LeBron and hiring his podcast partner. What are the Lakers doing? The Lakers are stupid. Well, as you guys know, if you're NBA fans or Lakers fans, the Lakers have been one of the best teams in the NBA over the last 2 months. And people are starting to say, hey, JJ Redick is a really good head coach. JJ Redick is a coach of the year candidate. And this led Nick Wright, who, if you know anything about Nick Wright, he is a LeBron fan. He's a LeBron defender. It led him to going on his show, First Things First, on FS1, and talking about this and basically saying, hey, if you guys are going to tear LeBron down, if this move didn't work, you should also then give him credit now that the move of JJ Redick being the head coach works. So we'll go ahead and listen to what Nick Wright had to say about this on his show, and then we will react afterwards.
Yes, it is partially. I don't think they're going to continue. Opponents aren't going to continue shooting 32% necessarily, but it is intentional. And that then brings back a topic that at the beginning of the year, when the Lakers had a middling record or a similar record to last year, was a very popular topic on all these talk shows that talk about the Lakers and get very defensive. Anyone about the Lakers talks about the talk shows, was coaching a problem last year. Now, I understand Darvin Ham evidently has more friends than Roy Rogers, but it would appear, Mr. Rogers is what I meant to say, my apologies. Roy Rogers, not what I meant. But can we now objectively say he wasn't doing a good job? Can we say and now I know some have moved the goalpost to, well, remember, in his first year, he made the conference finals. So that's the standard, JJ, you've got to reach, which is kind of weird. It's like, okay, so this year, if they make the second round, it's bad. But then if in his third year, you win 45 games, it's improved. Doesn't really make sense, but it's fine. JJ Redick, I was concerned about JJ's ability to handle the day-to-day media scrutiny because I do think he is a little too online. I think you saw that from one of his quotes last week about what the kids were going to accuse him of doing. That's not something you normally hear from a head coach. And I think that he might be a little too defensive. What nobody questioned was how much he knew basketball. And again, I just want to know the rules of engagement on this stuff. Is it still LeBron James hired his podcast partner? Because if he did, does he get to share the Coach of the Year trophy if JJ wins it? How does it work? I know, LeBron traded for Russell Westbrook, but made them trade for Anthony Davis, but doesn't get the 2 rings for the Anthony Davis move. But then does he get the Luka credit? Because you traded AD for Luka, or is it just the bad moves? He forced out poor Darvin Ham. He forced out poor Frank Vogel.
Guys, he's exactly right. I don't know what Nick Wright's original opinion was of the JJ Redick move, but if you're a person that has been watching this podcast since last summer, that watched this podcast at the beginning of the year, we called this. We said, hey, JJ Redick is going to be a great hire. We called it at the beginning of the season when we immediately started watching the Lakers, and you're like, oh, this is different. They have a game plan. They have a structure. They're passing the ball. There's more of a plan. People know their responsibilities. People know what they're doing. Now, did it take a little bit of time over this season to finally get the message through to the basketball team? Yeah, it did. But again, we've talked about this before too. It reminds me a lot of Ime Udoka's first year with the Boston Celtics. When Ime took over, which was the year that they ended up going to the finals, losing to the Warriors, they were 24-25. They were below 500 well into the season. And then I think it was late January, early February, things clicked. Everyone bought in. Everyone understood what they were supposed to do. And the Celtics went on an amazing run, ended up, tearing their way through the Eastern Conference playoffs, dethroned the Bucks, who were defending champions. I believe they beat the Heat in the conference finals to get to the NBA finals. And you're like, oh my God, we finally saw something here. Ime Udoka is a really good head coach. And that reminds me a lot of what happened with JJ Redick and the Lakers this year, where it was kind of like, hey, they had some really bad games where they're getting blown out, but then they trade D'Lo for DFS. And basically since then they have taken off. Like the streak that they have been going on was well before the Luka Doncic trade. The streak they've been going on was with Anthony Davis missing a few games in that stretch there before they trade for Luka Doncic. JJ Redick deserves a ton of credit, but why did we know at the beginning of the summer and at the beginning of the season that JJ Redick was going to be a good basketball coach? Because not just because he knows a lot about basketball, but the reason I believe that he would be really good is because LeBron wants him. And I believe in the NBA specifically, if your superstar wants a certain coach or doesn't want a certain coach, you listen to them. You listen to them because more often than not, and now we can go through different examples of like times it didn't work in NBA history. But for the most part, if one of the guys is saying it is super, super special, it ends up working. For example, uh, go back to the early 80s. Magic Johnson, for those who need a little bit of a history lesson, basically Magic Johnson gets drafted. It's the same year that they have Jack McKinney, who was the originator of the Showtime Lakers offense. And he only coaches like a few games. He has this like tragic biking accident that like alters his, mental cognition for the rest of his life. So he's done coaching. And that brings in Paul Westhead, who became the head coach of the Lakers for Magic's first season. Paul Westhead was like, hey, I'm not going to touch anything with Jack McKinney. We're going to basically run this same type of offense that he had. I'm basically just piloting the ship or captaining the ship until he comes back. And basically what happened is he did that and they ended up winning a title. After that season, Paul Westhead is called a genius. Oh my God, this rookie head coach takes over the Lakers. And basically Paul Westhead gets all of the credit for that first title in the 80s. And he's basically called like a genius, whiz kid, basketball savant. And basically Paul Westhead starts smelling his own farts a little bit too much. And basically he comes in the second season as head coach and basically changes up everything that worked for the Lakers. And what happens that year? They win a bunch of games but lose in the first round. The beginning of the next season, Magic Johnson forces the Lakers' hand to fire Paul Westhead. Magic got raked through the coals for it. Magic never got credit for being right. That's the thing that no one said about that situation. Magic was right because who did they hire after that? They hired Pat Riley, who ended up winning 4 NBA championships with the Lakers, who is considered one of the greatest NBA coaches of all time. That's still affecting basketball today. Magic was right. LeBron was right to fire Darvin Ham. He was right to hire JJ Redick. People forget all of this stuff. This is the first time that the Lakers actually listened to LeBron. When he first got there, Luke Walton fired after the first year. LeBron wanted Tyronn Lue. He wanted Tyronn Lue. Well, the Lakers lowballed Tyronn Lue because they didn't like him. So they gave the job to Frank Vogel. So Frank Vogel accepted. Is Tyronn Lue a top 5 coach in the NBA? Top 7? I don't know where you want to rank him. That would have been a better move than Frank Vogel. After the 2021 season, it was a Woj report that basically said that, like, hey, if the Lakers were going to fire Frank Vogel, if they were going to fire him, LeBron would want Jason Kidd. Well, Jason Kidd, in 3-4 years in Dallas, took him to a conference finals, took him to an NBA finals. Probably would have been a good move. Guys, you listen to your star if they want a different head coach. You listen to them. I'll give you guys another example. James Harden, once upon a time, was in Houston. Kevin McHale's his head coach. He goes up to Daryl Morey, and it's basically like, hey, get rid of Kevin McHale. Get somebody else. Well, what happened? Got rid of Kevin McHale, bring in Mike D'Antoni. Now, they didn't win a title out of that. It didn't result in an NBA title, but it turned James Harden into one of the more statistically best NBA players in history of basketball. That was the right move, even though they didn't win a title. Again, you can nitpick other ones in recent memory. You'd have to go through NBA history to really find out all of the times that this happened. A few ones that you could say didn't work was one was like actually last year. Giannis and Chris Middleton, I believe, were really important with the Bucks. I don't think they wanted Coach Bud fired, but they were really influential on the hiring process to get Adrian Griffin. Obviously, Adrian Griffin only makes it like 40 games and they bring in Doc Rivers. I guess that remains to be seen if that was the right decision. Even though I was still okay with that because, again, if the star's not clicking with the coach, you're just not going to win. Another one was the Nets firing Kenny Atkinson to bring in Steve Nash. Kenny Atkinson this year, by the way, is going to win Coach of the Year, and he's turned the Cavaliers into title contenders with basically the same roster that JB Bickerstaff had, who's also doing a great job in Detroit, by the way. That probably wasn't the right move, even though I still think Steve Nash was a good head coach. He just kind of got screwed, and he got the blame for that whole net situation breaking down. But it really was it his fault that the big three that they had with Kyrie, Harden, and KD only played like 12 games together, and in that playoff series they lost to the Bucks. Harden's on one leg, Kyrie's out, and like, is that really his fault? I don't know if it is. So, kind of my point is, we knew this was going to be a good hire. If you listen to this podcast, you knew it was going to be a good hire stuff. So, again, all of that smoke that you guys had for LeBron, you got to give him credit. He picked the right guy. He picked the right guy. Again, LeBron has this like thing about a coach killer too, like the David Blatt thing. How dare David Blatt be fired by the Cavaliers? Okay, was Tyronn Lue did not turn out to be an amazing head coach? Where's David Blatt now? Luke Walton got fired. Where's Luke Walton right now? Where's Frank Vogel right now? Where's Darvin Ham right now? None of them are head coaches in the NBA. Maybe those were all the right decisions. Guys, it's one of those things where it's like, hey, I don't care about how many coaches you had. Well, I guess I care a little bit, but I don't care about firing some of them if you're right about it. If it's the right decision, if it's the correct decision, which this was. Now, the weird thing was, too, with the Lakers, too, they almost wanted to screw it up again when I don't know how all the facts of the Dan Hurley thing were in the summer. That was always like a really weird story. About like the money that they offered him. I don't know all the details of that, but the Lakers almost screwed it up again. If they were actually serious about hiring Dan Hurley, they almost screwed it up again with a fourth head coaching hire for LeBron in his time in Los Angeles. But they got it right this time. JJ's an amazing head coach, and he's turned the Lakers into title contenders. JJ deserves a tremendous amount of credit because without amazing defensive personnel, this team's the best defense in the NBA. And that's why, again, if you watch the show, every time we talk about them competing for a title, we say it's the defense, the defense, the defense. You got to have a top 10 defense if you're competing for an NBA title. You just gotta. And the Lakers have it. They have two of the best problem solvers in the NBA now, and they have a good head coach who, again, we haven't seen him go in the playoffs, but I think he will be able to play chess with a lot of the other best head coaches in the NBA come playoff time. So that's going to do it for this episode here today. If you like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Number one way to help support this show. Costs you absolutely $0 and helps push us out into the algorithm even more. And our goal is to hopefully sometime in the next few months hit 1,000 subs. I think we're at like 654 or something right now. So help us reach that goal. Would very much appreciate it. Again, we've called this Lakers thing for a while. If you want to be ahead on some trends of some sports stories, probably a good idea to subscribe to this podcast. Again, thank you for watching. Leave a comment too with your thoughts on the video. That also helps out a lot. And we'll talk to you next time. Thank you for watching.